Afternoon, guys. So we've reconvened to look at Herzberg's motivational theory follow-up. Just going to turn my transcript off. That's a little bit off-putting for me. So we're looking at today going through the training that we did last week, or maybe the week before, and we're going to hopefully formalise a plan at the end of this to kind of take forward into the workplace. So same people as before, so welcome back. You all know me. Mario, I know you've not turned your camera on today because of your work location. So just make sure you stay present for me and give me some nice answers. That'd be awesome. As you all know, my name's James McNally. We've met quite a few times. And this lunch and learn session will take 15 minutes. A lot of interaction, please, would be great. And as we go through, you'll see the slides as a little bit of guidance going through. First one's talking about housekeeping. I've already talked about being present. So that's, listening to what I'm saying, actively listening as we go through and then answering the questions as best as you possibly can. Like I said to you before, I've known you guys a while, so that shouldn't be a challenge for you. If either of you, any of you have got any accessibility issues, there are other ways of receiving this information. So feel free to reach out. And we'll change the delivery method for you. Mobile phones, I know you're busy people, but if you can keep them on silent for me, that'd be great. As we go through the discussion part, again, you know each other quite well as a team, but respect each other's views. Don't go off on a tangent with that one. And any questions, feel free to ask them as we go along, and I'll try to answer them as best as I possibly can. All happy to go on? Brilliant. Thank you, Nikosh. Yeah. So the reason we're doing this, and the reason we're looking at motivation in quite a bit of depth, as I said in the last course, the following from the findings of the Manchester Arena inquiry found that basically employee motivation was quite low on that particular site, and in particular with the security teams. So the idea being that if we can keep motivation as a key focus, hopefully our workforce will be a little bit more switched on, and hopefully we won't end up in a similar sort of inquiry, which would be good. The idea of this session is to again look at understanding those satisfaction and how we maintain that, and we look to motivate our officers as we go through, and then construct an action plan as we get to the end of the course that we can take to the work day and actually make a positive difference. So first question for you guys: why is motivation important to us? You're on mute, Zane.
Sorry.
But thanks for your answer. I'm sure it was great.
Yeah. Motivation affects our work. Well, motivation is good, then work is better. If motivation is down, then decreases productivity, things like that.
Okay. So when you say the work is better, you mean the productivity, so we get a better output from people.
Yeah. Better productivity. The person's more how do you put it? Interactive, more into their work, sort of. They take more ownership of it.
Yeah, brilliant. Anything else to add, guys?
Motivation creates a better working environment as well. Makes us feel confident in our workspace.
Brilliant, Mario. I love that. So we look at one thing, which is the aspect of how much output do we get from people, but the human element of, do you enjoy coming to work? Do we have good working relationships? Do we have a great time while we're here? We spend a lot of time at work with our colleagues, 12 hours of time at least. So actually having those working relationships and enjoying what you do is massively important as well. So thank you for that. So what impact do you think it has on the company if motivation's poor? So look at those work outputs being bad, working relationships being bad. How do you think that affects ISS?
If the client isn't getting enough out of the officers, then it's going to negatively impact that. So reputation, could end up losing the contract.
Loss of business.
Yeah, both those. So ultimately, you're 100% right. So the officer doesn't provide a good service. The client becomes unhappy. You guys get a lot more work because the client's unhappy. So you have to manage the individual, manage the client, and do all of the bits and pieces that you're very good at, to be fair. And then ultimately, we lose that site. We lose enough sites, we lose the business. When it comes to service renewal, or even before that, we could actually lose the contract. And then the impact is quite catastrophic, isn't it? So motivation can be quite important in those senses. So thank you very much. When we look at Hertzberg's theory of motivation again, do you remember we brought up these hygiene factors, and then we looked at the motivators on top of that? So the hygiene factors were the kind of parts that we need to keep in place to people have a steady base, I suppose, for their working lives. And then to actually motivate them and get them more out of them, we need to do the bits on the top of the rocket. So which of these, so have a look at that list, and which of these do you think in your job role we can actually have an impact on, and how would you have an impact on them? Which ones would you pick out?
Responsibility.
Okay, so I like recognition and responsibility. Good, right? I'm just writing these down.
Personal growth.
Advancement.
Right, okay, one sec, stop there a second. So you've picked quite a lot out of the top part for a start. So tell me, responsibility, tell me how we can have an impact on that. What does responsibility mean to you, first of all?
Taking ownership of something.
Yeah.
Showing staff members that you believe in them to carry out said tasks.
Brilliant, and I think that's what it's referring to, saying that you're 100% right. So it's taking that ownership for something, but also giving someone else ownership for it and empowering them to have control of something they might not necessarily have. One person that springs to mind with that is Frank over at Worship Street. So you've given Frank a cluster of sites to look after, which is tied in with that actual responsibility on there. So how do you think Frank felt about that?
His confidence went up.
Good.
His belief in the company that
Frank felt a sense of.
Sorry, Mario, you cracked up a little bit there. Can we go again with that one, please?
Frank must have felt a sense of achievement, taking on that responsibility.
So he hit 2 of those boxes, right? Well done. I like the way you tied him in, Mario. That's great. Yeah, so he would have a sense of achievement. He would have taken on that responsibility. I've spoken to Frank a couple of times in the last week, and you're 100% right. He seems to have kind of had that little step change, a little bit more of a skippity step, I suppose, and he seems to be a bit happier at work. So well done for doing that. Even if you didn't know about Hertzberg's motivational factors, you hit 2 of them with Frank at least. So great. And that also ties in with the work itself, I suppose. If we look at Frank as an example, he's gone from 12 hours of one site sitting behind a desk to actually having that responsibility and ownership of a few other sites. And like you say, it's given him a real boost and a lift. So well done. Okay, so recognition. What can we do about recognition?
It's when you achieve something, then having that recognized, it shows that other people appreciate what you're doing. So, for example, if I do something and then Zain recognizes that, it shows me that my manager is looking into what I'm doing and is happy with my work.
The power of thank you.
Yeah.
The power of thank you. Yeah, we normally talk about the power of hello, don't we? But the power of thank you is right. Yeah, I like the way you've coined someone else's phrase, Zain, and just run with it. but yeah, 100% right. The power of thank you. And I know from my personal experience, I've been in jobs before where I think I'm doing a reasonable job, but that confidence wanes after a while if nobody else tells me I'm doing a reasonable job. So you're 100% right, Nikosh. Someone else acknowledging the work that you've done, hopefully in a positive light, but someone acknowledging it can mean the world, can't it? And can make a massive difference. And you get that little boost, and then you kind of expand what you're doing and do a little bit more of it, which is great. Okay, so we've got a couple of ways to recognise people, haven't we? With the GEM Awards and the Apple Awards that we do. You actually do quite a good job of that, to be fair. Hopefully you do the power of thank you as well, Zane. I'm nicking that now. I'm going to write that phrase down. But hopefully you use the power of thank you as well with the staff as we go along. What about things like the bonus scheme? Do you think that recognises people?
Yeah.
It's another way.
It does, yes. It also recognises personal performance.
Yep.
On each individual.
And if you think about your job roles, you guys ultimately have quite a lot of say in those aspects, don't you? In their whether they get an Apple Award, whether they get a GEM Award, whether you say thank you or not, that has an impact on it. The QIRs and the performance ratings and stuff like that, and recognising someone's good performance, you have an input into there, and ultimately their recognition on achieving the bonus scheme, you guys have input into that as well. So your job roles are fantastically important in that aspect. So thank you for that. What about personal growth? How does that work, and how can we have an input on it?
Recognizing an officer for them to grow, I give them more responsibility, more commitment, more work to do, more trust to carry out said tasks, helping them develop in their role.
Brilliant, thank you, Zane. I think you're 100% right, and I think that but from day one, you guys input into that. So when you think about your induction, you tell people what's expected of them, and then you monitor them along the path, and you say you've done this really well. You need to improve on that area, and you give them a pathway to improve on whatever you've highlighted. And then they go into their performance reviews, and again, you're in there talking about their competencies and where they are at the moment, where they'd like to be, how they want to grow, and that could be on a work performance basis, or it could be on a, where do they want to take their career, where do they want to go, and you're quite right. You then highlight someone that you think is fit for growth. You help them to advance into the supervisory roles or to wherever next they're going, and you guys put all of that framework in place. So again, you've got a massive input into it, which is great, and that's basically advancement and personal growth. I think apprenticeships is something else that kind of falls within that as well. And over the last few weeks, you've highlighted a few people that are ripe for apprenticeships, and started sowing that seed with the officers as well. So good, we've made some progress there. So thank you for that as well. What about those hygiene factors? Do you think you can have an impact on any of those?
Yes.
We went 50-50 there, Zane, did you?
Yeah,
yes or no?
I thought, you could do. So it could be better supervision.
Okay.
It could be better. How can I say, relationship with the officer regarding their personal life, whether or not they want to share anything that's bothering them with you. Could be salary. Could be convincing the director to raise their salary slightly.
I think these seem a little bit more challenging, right?
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Zane. You're on the right path there. But if you think about, if you take personal life, for example, that might not be an officer sharing their personal life, but you guys roster the officers in. So making sure they're not doing too many shifts in a row. You're helping with their personal life, making sure that they actually have a work-life balance, rather than sort of running them into the ground, 12-hour shifts back to back for 7 days, like your Barbican days, Nikosh, has an effect on your personal life. So looking at those aspects, the 4-on 4-off shift change they're looking at the Barbican, that ties in with personal life again, doesn't it? And working relationships, and work conditions. So we can have an impact on a lot of these things. Salary, not so much. you're quite right in saying we can try our hardest to improve the salary conditions, but salary is what it is. It's a lot harder, right? So to change that, but giving people a good understanding of it, telling them when their pay dates are, when they first come to work for us, letting them know how the salary package works, and sort of in that, even looking at that bonus scheme that impacts on their earnings, right? So it's kind of there are little things we can do within there, but it's more of a challenge, I suppose. It's a harder ask. Supervision, I think you guys do great at supervision, to be fair, but it's maintaining that, keeping up the good work, making sure that everybody gets the same supervisory kind of impact. So we get around to see everybody regularly. We have the same conversations with people. We develop where we can, and as a team, I mean, you guys have all recently been promoted into your roles, and I think you're making great progress moving forward. So I think that's really good, and definitely something in 2023 we can kind of make sure we keep maintaining and work forward with. But it's a little bit harder with those ones, isn't it? But even things like job security. So you've got a relief team that rely on you to provide their hours. Most of the relief team that I speak to look for a permanent site at some point, and by providing those permanent sites, you're providing job security to a point. I know the city still has ownership over the sites and do change them regularly, but it's looking at those sort of factors which maintain those hygienes. A little bit more awkward, but it's interesting that you all went for the rocket ones rather than the kind of the stable base. And I think that as a management team, if you can look at that stable base first and foremost, and look at what your challenges are, do a root cause analysis on your challenges, and then you can figure out if you've got anything you need to actually impact on, or if everything's running smoothly and it's okay, and then you just need to maintain it. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Make sense?
It does make sense, yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of this stuff is stuff that you do week in, week out. You just don't realise that's why you're doing it, if that makes sense, or how it impacts on things like motivation. So just keep maintaining it, and obviously if there's anything you want to take a look at, I'm more than happy to help you with that. Although Zane's your first point of call, right? Hopefully he's still there, not sloped off.
Still there.
Thanks, Zane. You've gone off screen, mate. I can't see Nikosh, but there you go. So from what we've talked about today, what actions do you think you could take forward? Is there anything?
I think maybe looking at trying to find out on the sites that we have who's motivated and who's not, and then maybe looking at ways to improve it for those that are not motivated. How can we bring that up?
Yeah, I like that, Nikosh. It's really hard to kind of measure someone's motivation. So it's almost like you want to go in and see if they're smiling or not. It's quite challenging sometimes, and it might not be the workplace that's causing the lull in their motivation. I suppose there could be personal things going on. So those regular conversations that you have with them are massively important. And if you think about a lot of the stuff you do, might not necessarily just, there's not a question how motivated are you, but there's a lot of questions about people's welfare, about their working conditions, all of these sort of things, and they all tie in with those motivational factors. So if you've got anybody that's scoring low or has got a particular concern, just by actioning it, you are feeding into that. So but good. But yeah, I think you're 100% right. Let's get round to the sites. Let's see where people are. What have we got going on at the moment that would maybe give us an answer on that?
The My Voice survey.
Well done. Yeah. It kind of ties in again, doesn't it? So survey's gone out to all of the officers. By getting them to fill it in, we might get an answer on the current state of play, and then it's action in that and seeing what we can improve and what we can make a difference with. So good that you're thinking in that way. Anything else?
Officer welfare.
So I got officer welfare there, and Mario, I think you kind of said something as well, but I kind of missed that.
QIR, the monthly QIR.
Yeah, so good. The monthly QIRs. We've got the final one for the year coming up, haven't we? The quarterly one. So getting around to as many people as we can with that. And again, that feeds into the same sort of questions. It looks at their welfare and motivation within that. And then our monthly meetings, if we can maintain those where we look at the data that comes from it, then that's great. And we can have an impact and make a difference for those officers. Things like the staff engagement meeting, again, are important. They tie in with this as well. And yeah, well, Zane, was that you that shouted out welfare at that point?
Yeah.
Thought I recognised the voice in the distance.
Yeah, officer welfare.
Yeah, officer welfare is massively important, right? And alongside that, you guys are all officers as well, right? And your welfare is important, okay? And I'm an officer as well. My welfare is important. It's about taking a look at everybody and what impact we can have on it. So I put together a few little bits last time. It's the same things. So I'm glad you agree with me in that sense. The end of year QIR process, the employee survey, that monthly QIR data we just talked about. And then again, I will send you out a reflection sheet on this lesson that we've gone through. So have a think about the content, have a think about what actions you can take forward, and those little bits of difference you can make that all tie in and make a massive difference to that staff motivation and the culture of work, which I think is really important. Okay, and recap on the learning objectives, understand the maintaining satisfaction and how to motivate officers, and construction action plan to apply the theory to your own team. So I think those actions you said you can take forward, that'd be great. I'll write those up and send out an email to you guys detailing what was in there, and then we can work on those and push them into the workplace. And I think that would be positive. So that's good. And then my last question for you is: do you have any questions?
No, not from me.
Not from me, James. All summed up properly.
Thank you, sir. Mario, you got anything to add?
No questions, James. I think we've discussed everything in detail. You've explained everything in fine detail. No questions from me, thanks.
Thank you, Mario. Yeah, so again, feel free to reach out if you want to go over any of this or anything kind of piqued your interest that we didn't spend some time on. But other than that, thank you very much for attending today, and thank you for your time. I'll now stop the recording.
Thanks for having us, James.
Cheers,
You're more than
James.
welcome.
Thank you.